بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: وما كان المؤمنون لينفروا كافة فلولا نفر من كل فرقة منهم طائفة ليتفقهوا في الدين ولينذروا قومهم إذا رجعوا إليهم لعلهم يحذرون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Let us please send a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Today, many people from various backgrounds, from various educational backgrounds, have scrutinized the concept of taqleed. Some have rejected the concept of taqleed. They say, what is the point of blindly following a scholar that doesn't live in our community, in our country, lives in a different part of the world, doesn't understand our challenges, doesn't know what we face as Muslims in the West? Why should we blindly follow his fatwas and his opinions? Taqleed has become irrelevant. It's not relevant to our lives. And why blindly follow? Why is taqleed blindly following another individual? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a mind, has given us reason, the ability to think and ponder and analyze. The same way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the marja' a mind, He's given me a mind. Why should I turn off my mind and blindly follow someone else who lives in another country, in another community, in another culture, and has no clue about my challenges and my culture and the difficulties that I have to face? And plus, where is taqleed in Islamic history? Where is the proof and evidence? In fact, the Quran condemns taqleed, they say. The Quran says regarding people that prophets were sent to, that why do you worship idols? Why do you believe in this faith and religion? They said, قَالُوا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا وَإِنَّا عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ muhtadun or muqtadun, that we found our fathers on this path and we'd like to continue the path of our fathers. This is essentially what? Taqleed. So the Quran frowns upon taqleed. The Quran condemns taqleed, they say. Tonight, my dear brothers and sisters, we shall prove that taqleed is well grounded in our history and in our scripture. It has sufficient proof and evidence, textual evidence from the Quran and from the Sunnah, and moreover, rational practice. It's something very rational, it's something very logical. And taqleed is not blindly following an individual. No. Rather, it's something else we shall explain. And we shall prove that these verses do not condemn the taqleed that we perform. It condemns the taqleed of someone ignorant. قَالُوا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا. Who were their fathers? Their fathers were people who were ignorant, illiterate. They knew nothing. Obviously, someone ignorant following another person who is ignorant, this is condemned. The taqleed that we perform is referring to the expert, referring to a professional who have done their homework, who have done sufficient research. This is not blind following. And the Quran doesn't condemn this sort of behavior. And at the end, as I was requested by the dear brothers and sisters from the Ahlalbait Youth Organization, we will briefly discuss why do our maraja' vary in their fatwas. Why does one marja' say this is halal and another marja' says this is haram? Or this is wajib, that is makruh, this is mustahab. Why cannot the maraja' all agree upon one fatwa? Why is there a wide spectrum of religious opinions? What's the reason for this? And we will briefly look at a case study, and that is the matter of moon sighting. Something very relevant, something very practical. And as we are approaching the holy months of Sha'ban, and specifically the holy month of Ramadan, the issue of moon sighting becomes very relevant. One marja' says, for example, the month will start on Monday, another marja' will say on Tuesday, another marja' will say on Wednesday. Why? Why can't they agree on one day? Why does it become 3 days? We shall try to the best of our ability explain why our maraja' disagree in their fatwas and in their research. Wa sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Taqleed, my dear friends, is not a new trend. It's not something that we discovered in the 21st century. It's a new phenomenon. No. It existed from the times of the Ahlalbait, from the times of Imam Al-Baqir and Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam. We believe that taqleed is as old as Imam Al-Baqir and Imam Al-Sadiq. And when I say taqleed, I mean referring to jurists, not the imams themselves. That means at the time when Imam Al-Baqir and Imam Al-Sadiq existed, there were jurists being emulated and followed, not the imam, but the students of the imams. The students of the imams. We have several narrations where some of the companions of the Ahlul Bayt, they would come to Imam Al-Baqir, for example, or Imam Al-Sadiq, or Imam Al-Rida, or Imam Al-Hussein Al-Askari and Imam Al-Hadi. They would tell them that we cannot reach you at all times. The Imam is in Medina. Someone from, for example, the city of Hamadan, or Khurasan, or Kufa, or Basra. They say, we can't reach you. And you have to take in consideration, this was at a time when WhatsApp didn't exist, emails didn't exist, TV didn't exist. To ask a question from the Imam, it would take days of travel between Kufa and Medina. You don't set out and travel to ask a question or two. Practically, the Imam had to have his students and his disciples, those who learned the general principles from him. They learned the general principles of the istinbat, the ability to derive laws. And then the Imam had them dispersed in the Ummah. The Imam would say, عَلَيْنَا إِلْقَاءُ الْأُصُولِ وَعَلَيْكُمُ التَّفْرِيعِ. This is a hadith by Imam Rida alayhi salam. You will find it in Mustatarfat al-Sara'ir. The Imam tells his companions that my job is to give you the general guidelines, the general principles. And it's for you to derive laws from the general principles. And hence the Imams, some of their companions were jurists, fuqaha, like Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman, Muhammad ibn Abi Umayr, Jamil ibn Darraj, Zurara, Muhammad ibn Muslim, Abu Basir, Zakaria ibn Adam. These were not ordinary companions and ashab. They were jurists, fuqaha. For example, there's an authentic narration, Sahihat Ali ibn al-Musayyab al-Hamadani. So this is a gentleman, one of the companions of Ahlul Bayt in Hamadan, in Iran. He comes to Imam al-Rida. Imam al-Rida is where? He's in Khurasan. He's in Nishabur, Khurasan, in Mashhad. He says, شقتي بعيدة ولست أصل إليك في كل وقت. I live in a far city. I can't come to you at all times. فممن آخذ معالم ديني. From who can I take the laws of my faith and religion? The Imam says, Min Zakaria ibn Adam. Al-Ma'mun ala ad-dini wad-dunya. Go to Zakaria ibn Adam, my student, my disciple, someone who carries my knowledge. Go to him and ask him. He says, I went. فَلَمَّا انصَرَفْتُ قَدِمْنَا عَلَى زَكَرِيَّا ibn Adam فَسَأَلْتُ عَمَّا أَحْتَاجُ إِلَيْهِ. I came to Zakaria ibn Adam and he became my referral. The Imam referred me to him. This is called what? This is taqleed. Essentially, this was taqleed at the time of Imam Al-Rida. Another hadith, also on the authority of Imam Al-Rida. And also, this is an authentic hadith, صحيحة. صحيحة عبد العزيز ibn al-Muhtadi والحسن ibn Ali ibn Yaqtin. They both asked Imam Al-Rida, لا أكاد أصل إليك أسألك عما أحتاج إليه من معالم ديني. I can't always come to you. The Imam is in Medina or he's in Khurasan. How are they meant to come and visit him all the time and ask him questions? أفيونس بن عبد الرحمن ثقة آخذ عنه معالم ديني؟ قال نعم. He said yes. Is Yunus ibn Abd al-Rahman someone reliable, someone credible, someone who has authority that I can take from him the laws of my faith? He said yes. Yes, you may refer to him in matters of taqleed. So we see that it's well grounded in the seer of the Ahlalbait from the times of Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq. If we were to trace back the history of taqleed, it dates back to the 5th Imam and the 6th Imam. And it continued to the 7th, 8th Imam. They all promoted taqleed. We also have to understand something else, my dear brothers and sisters. That the Imams were also preparing the Shia for what? The disappearance of the 12th Imam. Because when the Imam disappeared, at his disappearance, the minor occultation and the larger occultation, Al-Ghaybat al-Sughra, and then later, Al-Ghaybat al-Kubra. Who were the Shia supposed to refer to? The ulama and the jurists. So it was Al-Imam al-Baqir, Al-Imam al-Sadiq, from 150 years before, they were preparing the Shi'i community, the Shia, to be in the habit of referring to the ulama, referring to the fuqaha, and to perform taqleed. So that Shia don't remain lost after the ghayba of the 12 Imam. So let's come to this question, and we receive this question all the time. Why do I have to rely on someone else's research? Allah has given me a brain. Allah has given me reason. Why should I blindly follow someone else? Why can't I do my own research and come up with Islamic laws? This is halal, this is haram, this is wajib, this is mustahab, and so on and so forth. I can come up with these conclusions. Why should I rely on someone else? I ask, when you have a medical problem, God forbid, who do you refer to? Who do you refer to? You refer to a doctor. Why? Why can't you do your own research? The same question applies to medicine. If God forbid, you have a medical question, you're in need, medically in need, why can't you perform your own research in medicine, pick up a couple of medical books, and reach your own conclusion? And you decide which medicine to take, which operation to have. But does that work? No. Of course it doesn't. Why? Because these are expertise. There are experts and professionals. They've done their homework. You are not an expert in medicine. It's only logical. You are not an expert in medicine, nor in law. Why do you refer to a lawyer? Why do we refer to lawyers? Because they're the experts at law. Why do you refer to doctors? Because they're the experts in medicine. Can I come up with a legal theory or legal opinions and do away without a lawyer? Impossible, because I'm not an expert. Unless I go through medical school or law school, yes. And then I have the right to develop my own opinions. But unless I become an expert in medicine or law, I do not have the authority. And hence I will be doing injustice to myself. If I were to say, let me develop my own medical opinions, who will be damaged first? myself. I'm putting myself in harm's way. By relying on an expert in medicine, I'm actually protecting myself. I'm securing myself. I'm making sure that I receive medicine from the proper means, from the right expert, from the right professional. It's about expertise and professionals. Imagine if a person, God forbid, is diagnosed with thyroid cancer. What do you do in this case? Some will tell you, you have options. Either radiation, right, Dr. Wa'id? Correct me if I'm wrong. After the lecture, not now. Either radiation, or chemotherapy, or surgery, or taking thyroxine. There's a bunch of options. What do? Do you draw a straw and decide on whether to take radiation or chemotherapy or undergo surgery or just take a pill once a day? You refer to an expert, someone who's done their homework. And you go and you ask them that I have such a case, these are my results, these are my medical results. I ask you for your professional opinion, tell me what I should do. Is this called blindly following? This is not blindly following. This is something logical. This is something rational. Why, my dear friends? Because at the end of the day, we live at a time when there's too many specializations. In fact, doctors refer to other doctors. A doctor specializes in ENT, that's his specialty, but will refer to another doctor in another field. Because this is one specialty, and that's another specialty. It's respecting people's expertise and specialties. You cannot become a polymath. Previously, people were polymaths, like Ibn Sina, theologian, philosopher, scientist, physician, you name it, and he was. Shaykh al-Tusi. Shaykh al-Tusi was a mufassir, he was a scholar of usul al-fiqh, tafsir, rijal. Today you cannot become a polymath. Why? Because these fields have advanced so much that in a lifetime you could only become an expert in one field. So you either become a doctor and in a specific place of being a doctor, in a special area, or you become a lawyer, or you become a religious scholar. To be all of the above, this is usually what? Impossible. This is usually impossible. Hence, specializations have advanced, and fiqh is a specialization. Why is it taken lightly? Ijtihad is a specialization. When a mujtahid gives a fatwa, this has taken years and years and years of research, of studying usul al-fiqh, of studying rijal, of studying tafsir, of studying nahu, ansaf, grammar, linguistics. When a scholar gives you a 2-line fatwa, that 2-line fatwa has 40 years of research behind it. Don't take it lightly. It has so much research behind it. There's so much effort put into this fatwa. So the choice is yours. You can't say, well, I'm going to do my own research. Sure, go ahead, do your own research. But at the end of the day, you can specialize in one field. Either you become a doctor or you become a mujtahid. You can't be both. You can't do both. Just time doesn't allow it. Time on earth doesn't allow you to be an expert in both fields. In Hawza, my dear friends, we decided on becoming experts in fiqh, but we don't get involved in other fields. When it comes to medicine, we in Hawza, we perform taqleed of others. A doctor will come to the greatest marja. He tells him, take this medicine, not that medicine. The marja says, yes, sir. I obey you. Because you're the expert, I'm not the expert. You're the expert in medicine. I'm the expert in fiqh, in usul al-fiqh. I respect you in your expertise, respect my expertise. In Hawza, we have one expertise. But in all other fields, we refer to the experts. When we need a lawyer, when we have a legal matter, we go to a lawyer. When we have a medical issue, we go to a doctor. When we want to build a building, we go to an architect. And we go to an engineer. Because it's about respecting expertise. طيب. And plus, even when we come to the Quran is very clear that fiqh is a specialization and it's meant to be respected. Those who go into this profession, that profession is respected. And it's for others to rely on their expertise. It's not blind following. When you go to a doctor, are you blindly following a doctor? No, this is something rational, something logical. Do people tell you, why did you rely on this doctor? No. Because he's the doctor and you're not. He's done his research. He's been into medical school, then did his residency and got his license. He spent a good 11, 12 years in his specialization. I didn't do this. See what the Quran says. وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لِيَنْفِرُوا كَافَّةً. All of the mu'mineen cannot go towards fiqh and to perform tafaqquh. فَلَوْلَا, if all of you can't go, فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةً. If all of you can't go to study fiqh, some of you from every group, some should go. Some from the Netherlands, some from the UK, some from America, some from Canada, some from Australia, from New Zealand. Pack your bags and go. Where? لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. They may perform tafaqquh. What is tafaqquh? Understanding. Fiqh comes from fahm, which means to understand. Understand with proof and evidence. That is tafaqquh. Tafaqquh is when you understand the laws and the ahkam based on their proof and evidence. And then وَلِيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ. And then after you performed tafaqquh, you go back to your people and you warn them, you teach them, you propagate لَعَلَّهُمْ يَحْذَرُونَ, so that they may take precaution, take heed to your advice. They come and consult you in their matters. طيب صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. Taqleed, my dear friends, is not something that is restricted to the school of thought of Ahlalbait, Shi'as. No, Taqleed exists in other schools of thought. Our Sunni brothers and sisters also perform Taqleed. They perform Taqleed of 4 scholars: Abu Hanifa, Malik ibn Anas, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Muhammad ibn Idris, Al-Shafi'i. These are their ulama. And in fact, Taqleed in Sunni school of thought was open to all jurists. Anyone who had reached the stage of ijtihad and was capable of deriving Islamic laws. For example, As-Suyuti. As-Suyuti was a mujtahid. Abu Yusuf Al-Qadhi, Muhammad ibn Hassan Al-Shaybani, Ibn Abi Layla. These were jurists. These were fuqaha. However, in the Sunni school of thought, they closed the door of ijtihad and they restricted taqleed to the 4 imams, their imams, to these 4 scholars. Why? The apparent reason is because there was a chaos. Everyone claimed to be a mujtahid. This person claims to be a mujtahid, this person claims to be a mujtahid. There was no one to guard. And everyone claimed to be a mujtahid. So there was chaos. And when it came to taqleed, there was a bit of chaos. So to reduce the amount of chaos, they restricted taqleed to 4 scholars. And this began from the 4th century after the death of Rasulullah, the 4th Arabic century, Al-Hijrah, the 4th to the 7th century. However, we know that this was not the true intention. This was not the real reason behind closing the door of ijtihad in Sunni Islam. What was the real reason? The real reason, my dear friends, that the greatest threat to any dictator, to any government, to any tyrant is a mujtahid, is a scholar that speaks the truth and is not afraid of anyone. He's the greatest threat. He's the greatest political opponent. Any dictator that wishes to rule freely and do whatever he wishes, he has to eradicate all obstacles in front of him. Ijtihad was an obstacle. Mujtahids were an obstacle. Mujtahids were an obstacle. Let me give you 2 examples. What happened in 1979? in Iran. There was the Shah of Iran, one of the greatest kings, very powerful, very close to the West, an ally of the West. What happened? Who toppled him? A mujtahid. A Shi'i mujtahid was able to topple a regime and change the course of history for the past 45 years. Another example. What happened in Iraq in 2013 and 2014? You know, there was a plan for Iraq to change the geography of Iraq. You think ISIS came by chance? All of a sudden, Mosul and Fallujah and these cities, they fell to the hands of ISIS and Daesh by chance? No, there was an agenda. Who? That's a different story. That will require a lecture of its own. And that's not my job. That's the job of political commentators. But who stopped this plan? It was a mujtahid. A mujtahid who issued a fatwa of jihad, and people took heed, and they stood in the face of ISIS, and within a year and a half, ISIS had become history. The Khilafah of ISIS had become history. It's now written in history books. Why? Thanks to a mujtahid. Now you see why they closed the door of ijtihad. Now you see why Channel 4 in Israel, when they had pictures, all of a sudden we saw the picture of Sayyid Sistani. You think that was a coincidence? That was done by a mistake? That was not a mistake. That was not a mistake to have the picture of Sayyid Sistani there. Because they know the amount of power that he has. Why? As a Shi'i jurist. As a Shi'i jurist. As a Shi'i jurist, you entail a lot of power and authority, and you become the greatest threat to countries that believe in mass human genocide, and to tyrants and anyone who's corrupt. طيب صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. In the history of Taqleed, we have individuals from the Shi'i community that rejected Taqleed. This is part of the history of Taqleed. And they are the Akhbaris. The Akhbari school of thought rejected Taqleed. They opposed Taqleed. In fact, they opposed Ilm al-Usul, Usul al-Fiqh, which is legal theory, which is how a mujtahid bases his principles and theories in deriving Islamic laws. They rejected Ilm al-Rijal, which is the science that studies the biographies of the narrators and transmitters of hadith, and they rejected ijtihad. Akhbaris, their claim was that we don't need taqleed. We don't need mujtahids. We have the narrations of Ahlalbait. We have the akhbar. We have the riwayat. We have a book like Al-Kafi, Al-Tahdhib, Al-Istibsar, Malahdhar al-Faqih. Why do I need a mujtahid to tell me what to do and not to do? I could go to Kitab Al-Kafi, I can see what the Imam said, and I will follow the hadith of the Imam. It's as simple as that. And all we need is hadith. We don't need the Quran even. This is what the Akhbaris believe in. Akhbaris believe that we cannot rely on the Quran for two reasons. Number one, they say, لا يعلم القرآن إلا من خُطب به. We do not have the ability to understand the Quran. Only the Ahlul Bayt have the ability to understand the Quran. Two, the Quran has been tampered with. Tahrif. The Quran has been distorted. And hence we cannot accept the Quran. Rather, we could only accept ahadith. Of course, we reject both notions. Number one, true, it is only the Ahlul Bayt that can understand the deeper meanings of the Quran. Because the Quran has a meaning, and then has a deeper meaning, and then has a deeper meaning, and then has a deeper meaning. The ultimate deeper meanings are for the Ahlul Bayt, but the apparent meanings are for everyone. For everyone. I can understand the Quran, you can understand the Quran. هَذَا بَيَانٌ لِلنَّاسِ. The Quran itself. It says this is a word of clarity for everyone. هَذَا بَيَانٌ لِلنَّاسِ. And number two, we usulis, we reject any notion that the Quran has been tampered with, or there's distortions in the Quran. We completely reject this notion that the Quran is accurate, and the Quran that we have today is the same exact Quran that was revealed upon the chest of Khatamul Anbiya Muhammad. And the problem with the argument that the Akhbaris make is that how can we rely on all of the akhbar and all of the narrations? We know for a fact that the Imams, some of their companions, maybe a handful, 4 or 5 of them, some of them were liars. They would fabricate ahadith, and hence there's a process of discerning between authentic ahadith from dubious ahadith that were fabricated. And who is able to do this? Regular people or the jurists? This is the job of the ulama, and to distinguish between a sahih, khabar sahih, wa khabar da'if. This is the job of an expert. This is the job of an expert. It's just like, God forbid, someone who has a tumor. Is this a tumor or is it something else? Is it malignant or is it benign? Can I decide? Or you decide? No, a doctor decides. A doctor decides whether this is a tumor or it's something else. And if it's a tumor, is it malignant or is it benign? The same way a faqih has the ability to distinguish between authentic ahadith and fabricated ahadith. It's not the job of anyone. Let me just pick up Al-Kafi and I have the hadith of Imam Al-Baqir, Imam Sadiq, and I no longer need taqleed. This is false. This is false. Also, some narrations might have contradictions. How do you solve the contradictions? Some narrations might be incompatible with the Quran. How can you distinguish between a narration that is compatible or incompatible with the Quran? This is the job of the jurist. We don't have to deal with this. We have our ulama and maraji' that have to, they deal with it. They've saved us the time and energy of performing our own research and performing ijtihad, which takes many, many years. They've done their job. They're the experts. طيب. Now, before I conclude, I don't know how much time I have, maybe 10 minutes, less. Why do maraji' disagree in their fatwas? Why can't the maraji' all agree on one fatwa? For example, is gelatin halal or haram? Why can't all the maraji' sit together and agree whether gelatin is halal or gelatin is haram, for example? You see, this question is like asking, why can't all doctors agree on the same medical prescription? Why does this doctor recommend radiation for someone who's diagnosed with cancer, and another doctor recommends chemotherapy? Why can't they agree on the same fatwa? Can you ask that question? Of course they won't agree. Why? Because they perform their own ijtihad. Even doctors. According to his studies, this patient requires chemotherapy. And according to another doctor's research, this patient requires radiation. It's different understandings, different readings, different ways of understanding science and understanding medicine. Same goes for ijtihad and fiqh. For example, is ijma', does it have legitimacy? Does it have authority and legitimacy or not? Some scholars say yes, some scholars say no. That will have an effect on their fatwa. Can you rely on a weak narration or not? Here some scholars have different opinions. Some scholars say, yes, even if it's weak, but if it's an Al-Kafi, I'll rely on it. Another mujtahid will say, no, I have to have an accurate chain of narrators. How do you expect these jurists with different theories and different approaches to all come and sit and agree on one fatwa? That's impossible. It's not logical. It's not rational. The differences amongst experts is something normal in all fields. Do all engineers agree? No. Do all architects agree? No. Do all pilots agree? No. Disagreements among experts is something very normal. Because I will see the case based on my understanding. Someone else, another expert, will see the case according to his understanding. And that's okay. At the end of the day, it's okay to disagree. It's okay to disagree. We can agree to disagree. Producing a fatwa is not a simple process, my dear friends. It's something very complicated. You have to look for precedent. You don't want to violate precaution. A marja' does not want to stand out. He issues a fatwa when all other maraja' issue a different fatwa. You look for similar fatwas. You search the history of the subject. Understanding the subject. Understanding the subject is half of research. Let me give you a story, if Dr. Wa'il allows me. In Karbala, I teach the laws of medicine in fiqh. The course that I've been teaching for about a year now is the laws of medicine in Islam, fiqh al-tib. For example, topic of euthanasia, dissection, IVF, even gender change, sex change. IVF or not becoming pregnant, ways of not becoming pregnant. These are all intricate laws pertaining to medicine that we have to understand what it is and then be able to research what the Quran and Sunnah have to say about these topics. And a lot of times in my research, I call my dear brother Dr. Wa'il. I send him a message and I tell him, please explain to me exactly what IVF is and how does this work? How do they take, for example, semen from a man and eggs from a woman? How does this process work? And he explains to me. And then I have a better understanding. This is part of ijtihad, referring to the experts in medicine and economics and law, and then you pass judgment Islamically based on scripture. Knowing the subject matter first, that is part of ijtihad. So it's not a simple process. Well, I'd like to say this is halal, or I'd like to say this is haram. No. It's not based on personal opinions or what I feel. It's not based on what I feel. It's based on what I've researched. It's based on my research and my understanding of the Quran and Hadith. Let's come to, and I conclude with this, the case study of moon sighting. You will see in the beginning of Sha'ban, and then in the beginning of Ramadan, and then at the end of Ramadan, this becomes a hot topic. Sayyid so-and-so will announce Eid, for example, on Saturday. Another will announce on Sunday. Another will announce on Monday. And every year we have the controversy and the discussion, why can't the Maraja agree on one day, one date? Why is it scattered on 3 dates or 2 dates? You see, my dear friends, it's not a simple matter. It's not a matter of why can't we all unify and gather. You think that the Maraja don't want people to unify and gather on one Eid or start on the same day of Ramadan? Of course. But they can't, when they understand hadith in a specific way. If he feels this is the end of Sha'ban, how do you expect him to announce it as the first of Ramadan? If he feels today is the 29th of Ramadan, how do you expect him to announce it as Eid? That's impossible. Where's the piety? Where's the righteousness? It's not as simple as, okay, let's get people to unify on Eid and announce today to be Eid. It's not that simple. It's based on understanding. Let me give you an example. We have a famous hadith. Sum lil-ru'ya waftar lil-ru'ya. Begin fasting based on sighting, ru'ya, and end fasting, meaning at the end of Ramadan, based on sighting. Now, what does this word mean, sighting? Sighting. Al-ru'ya. Al-ru'ya means to see the moon. Means to see the new moon. طيب. What if I didn't see the moon? By scientific calculations tell us that the new moon will be born on Monday, for example. It will be born on Monday. And it will be visible on Monday night. Scientifically, the moon will be visible on Monday night. Can I rely on scientific calculations? What if Monday night is cloudy and it's raining and we were not able to see the moon, sight the moon? What do? Here there's a difference of opinion. As-Sayyid al-Sistani, for example, says here, Al-Ru'ya, to sight the moon, this is a means. It's not an end. It's a means to discover that the moon is there. It's present. So if scientific calculations tell me that the moon was born and I can see it with the naked eye, if scientists tell me this, for me this is fine. Sayyid Sistani. Sayyid al-Khoi says no. Sayyid al-Khoi says scientific calculations are not enough. You have to go out and see the moon with your eyes. Or two men go out and sight the moon and they come and testify. You see how the way they read the hadith differently? One understands from ru'ya as a means, another finds it as a end. What if using binoculars? Can we use binoculars in sighting the moon? For example, the moon cannot be seen with the naked eye, but if I use binoculars or a telescope, I'll sight the moon. Is this ru'ya or is this not ru'ya? Is this sighting the moon or not? For example, Sayyid Al Khamenei says this is enough. This is ru'ya. This is sighting the moon. This is enough. The hadith falls upon this. This is ru'ya. Sayyid Sistani says this is not enough. Why? Because binoculars and the telescope did not exist at the time that this hadith was stated. When the Imam said, Som lil ru'ya, which ru'ya was he talking about? The naked eye. And hence it has to be seen with the naked eye. You see the different readings? The different understandings of the hadith? A third question. When the Imam says, Som lil ru'ya, I didn't see the moon here in The Hague or in the Netherlands, but they saw it in London, or they saw it in Portugal, in Madrid, Spain. Is this enough for me or not? Or they saw it in New York. They sighted the moon in New York. Is it enough for me to begin my fast and break my fast, or I have to see it in my own horizon? Here again, ulama have split. Sayyid al-Khoi says yes, you can rely on the moon sighting in another city, in another horizon. Why? Because the hadith is general. Som lil ru'ya. The Imam didn't say where, didn't say when. Sayyid Sistani says no, you have to sight the moon in your own horizon. In your own horizon. Why? Because we have other ahadith that a man comes to Imam al-Sadiq and he tells him that at the end of Sha'ban we could not sight the moon. On the eve of the 30th of Ramadan, we could not sight the moon because it was cloudy. And so we started a day late. So we didn't fast the next day. We started a day late. But then an individual from another city, after the month of Ramadan, he came and he told us that in the beginning of Ramadan, he had sighted the moon that night that we couldn't see. Do I need to make up that day or not? Imam says, make it up. Which city? Sayyid Sistani says, obviously it has to be a close city, not a far city. Not someone sitting in Kufa and another person from New York comes and says, we sighted the moon. It must have been someone close. For example, Basra and Kufa, Karbala and Najaf. Cities that are close, that are on the same horizon. Sayyid Khoi says, no. It could be from any city. As long as they share some of the night. Sheikh Bashir al-Najafi says, they don't even have to share some of the night. Wherever the moon is sighted, anywhere in the world, it's the new month for everywhere in the world. You see, it's not a simple matter. It's based on how they read the hadith, how they understand the hadith. So for you to come and say, please sit and agree on one day, this is not logical. This is not logical. I think I've taken up all of my time. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope that I was able to shed some light on the concept of taqleed, and why our maraja' disagree, and why do they come up with different fatwas. Hopefully maybe during the Q&A, if there were questions based on this topic, we'll be able to answer, inshallah. I conclude with this dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, salawatuka alayhi wa ala aba'ih, fi hadhihi as-sa'ati wa fi kulli sa'a. وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.